Hello, and welcome to another edition of Up Your Assets podcast. My name is Ray Ferrara, CFP, founder and executive chair of Provise Management Group. Our podcasts are educational in nature and not designed for personalized advice. Please speak with your financial advisor, attorney, or CPA before making any financial moves. Additionally, none of our guests on our podcast pays to be on the show. We don't endorse any products or services, and the opinions expressed by our guests are their own and not necessarily those of Up Your Assets. It is said that women generally control two things within a family. The first deals with the health of the family, and it usually is the woman who picks the doctors, schedules the appointments, goes to the appointments, and makes all the big health decisions. The second is dealing with money. Not so much investments, but when, where, and how that money actually is spent within the family. But this role for women is expanding into financial, retirement, and estate planning, and investment management, as women are set to control $30 trillion of assets by 2030, according to Forbes. Women approach money in a far different way, and arguably better than the way men do. Unfortunately, only about 23% of financial planners are women. But not only is our guest today one of those women, she is one of the very best and increasingly looked to for her advice on helping women unlock their monetary instincts. She has spent 25 years as a financial planner and is currently serving as managing wealth advisor and women in wealth ambassador for Ashton Thomas. She's been quoted in all of the major financial publications and shows, and she is an award-winning author. Her newest book is entitled Women and Wealth, which addresses the unique needs of women, the psychology that drives those financial decisions of theirs, and their reasonable demands for personalized advice and care. Please welcome my longtime friend, Cary Carbonaro, CFP and MBA, to Up Your Assets. Cary, thanks for being with us today.
Thank you for having me, Ray. This is such a treat.
It is indeed. And unfortunately, we haven't been together recently, but we have done a lot together over those past 25 years. And so this is really a unique pleasure for me today. You know, your first book, The Money Queen's Guide, Who Want to Build Wealth and Banish Fear, was a huge success. And why the second book is entitled Women and Wealth 9 years later, it really addresses how financial planners like myself, men in particular, can address the women's needs. And today I want to talk a little bit about that, but even more giving advice to the women who are watching the Up Your Assets podcast, and how they can spot those financial planners that are going to be more sensitive and attuned to their needs. So why the second book?
So such a great question. And I actually happen to have it right here. I'm a little bit matching my book today.
There you go.
And so this book is a labor of love, and it's a passion project for me. So this book was written, believe it or not, for the industry and to teach specifically men in the industry how to work with women in the most effective and productive way. So we know that the industry is 80% men, 20% women. We know that the industry is not female friendly. All the stats in here show that financial services is the least sympathetic industry to women and the one that has the most to gain if they get it right. So pretty much the history and you said the Forbes study, technically it's also a McKinsey study that came out over a decade ago. So our industry has known for over a decade that the future of wealth management is women. However, we're not changing, and we're not addressing this huge seismic shift that is happening within these next 5 years and beyond. Cerulli came out in February of 2025 of this year, and actually upped those numbers from 30 trillion to 54 trillion by 2048 that women are going to control. So we're talking like double the GDP of the United States. Women are going to control. So this is like a massive number. And I always say with a T, not a B, trillion dollar market. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to change the experience for women clients in the industry. And I also wanted to bring more women in the industry, both. So it was like a dual purpose. The book was a dual purpose. And of course, the third purpose is, which actually Carrie Hannon from Yahoo Finance, when she reviewed the book, she said, Cary, I think this book is for women to see what a relationship with a financial planner is supposed to look like. And that's a whole other audience that I didn't even realize was for the book. So anyway, that's how this book came to be. And it really took me a long time between the first book and the second book, really too long. Chapter 1, when I tell about my story, you'll see where I lost 4 years of my life in that time frame. And that's why it took me so long to get to the second book. And it also took me 3 years to write it.
Well, there's a lot of heart and soul in the book, along with information. As I read the book, Cary, I would agree that this book is as much for women who are looking for a financial planner as it is for a male financial planner to understand how to address the concerns, the needs, and the values of women versus men. It's always amazed me that so many male financial planners, when they're talking with a couple, everything gets addressed to the guy, never looks at the woman.
Yeah.
The guy dies, she gets all the money. And you and I know 80% of the time, divorce or death, the woman who's left
She's
behind,
leaving.
she's
Well,
leaving.
she's coming to me, so I like it. However, I don't want that to happen. I mean, that's that's one of the big chapters in the book is why women leave and what to do to not, well, actually read the whole book and you'll figure out what to do to not have them leave. But I don't want that to keep being the stat. That stat hasn't changed for decades. So it's so interesting because a lot of men really believe I'm doing nothing wrong. And guess what? Some of them are not. I'm not saying it's a blanket statement that everybody doesn't have unconscious bias or implicit bias, or or they're already working with women incredibly effectively, and the women love them and they're not leaving. That's great. Then guess what? You're already doing it right. But guess what? The majority are not. So hopefully we can implement some of these action items in this book so that we can change this experience for women going forward.
Well, Cary, let's dovetail off of that and tell me a little bit about women's, how would I describe it, financial experiences differing from men's at a societal, structural, and emotional level and factor.
Sure. So that's a big, long answer. And
That's
so
all right. We got lots of time, so you just be.
So let's start out with the strikes against women, which it's interesting because I did hear a financial planner, CFP, say women and men are exactly the same. And I beg to differ with that quote. And it was a man who was saying it, so I thought that was kind of interesting. But so let's talk about the issues that women face different than men, right? So these are the strikes that women have against them to start with. So the pay wage gap, the wealth gap. The pay wage gap, we make less, 82 cents on the dollar. The wealth gap is enormous. I don't even know if you know what that number is, but it's over time, where because of the pay wage gap and because of women out of the workforce, either caregiving, either having children, caring for children, caring for aging parents, it all falls on usually the female in the household. That winds up to be $1 million over a lifetime. So that's a massive amount of money right there. Okay, so we got that. Then we have women are investing less than men unless they're working with a CFP who educates them. It's interesting. I had a talk with a young CPA today who wanted to hire me. And she said, I'm so scared of the stock market. I just feel like real estate would be safer. And I went into this whole experience about how, it's an urban myth that women say that, my friend, my uncle, somebody I know lost all their money in the stock market. And I go through with them and I say that is literally impossible in a balanced portfolio with a period greater than 10 years, unless you're in a single stock that goes bankrupt or you're in a Ponzi scheme. So, we have that whole thing of women holding on to the money because of the fear around that. Then let's dovetail that into the bag lady fear, which is a real fear that more than 50% of women have, which is, oh my gosh, I'm going to be homeless, penniless, and pushing a cart on the side of the road. Now, growing up in New York City, I saw those women. So I have that fear. So, and it's funny because I have more money than I can spend, but I still have that fear. So it's crazy because it's almost an irrational fear, but it's still a fear and it's still there. So women still have that. Then women also have longevity. We live very, very long, on average, 5 to 7 years longer than men. And that is, could be healthy years or not healthy years. So that's another whole issue of how are you going to live those years? And are you going to have enough money? Are you going to outlive? Then we have the fact that they retire with 2/3 less than men, have lower Social Security than men because of all the other issues that I talked about. Some women put family members before themselves. So they don't contribute to their own retirement. They'd rather, support their adult children than fund their own retirement. I've seen that a couple times in my lifetime, or even their young children, and give them every single thing that they want and have the kids go to private school. Meanwhile, they're sacrificing their own future. So I've seen that. And then women spend $250,000 more in retirement on healthcare. So we've got a lot of things going on with women. So women need, I always say, more money, not less money, and money equals power, and women need more of both. So that's one of the strikes, a bunch of the strikes against women. So we have to address all of those needs as a financial planner, and we have to address them in a way that they feel comfortable with. So one of the things you said was, sometimes the man is not even making eye contact with the woman. I've been in meetings where I've heard this, and I hear this all the time because everybody tells me all the stories, and I like to collect those stories and then tell them back. And so, where they're having a meeting, the woman literally pulls out a magazine and starts reading a magazine in the middle of the meeting because she is completely disinterested and unengaged in what is happening. So, I mean, this is normal. And also the fact that the planner is not asking her any questions, is not communicating with her, is not speaking her language, is speaking in a very male tone and with jargon and, just eyes glazing over. And this is why it's so unsympathetic to women, and women feel so uncomfortable in, like, where they don't feel open, they don't feel so that they can ask the questions. They feel like they don't even know what questions to ask, and so it's just a whole horrible experience for them. And that's what I want to change.
And and I think the book does go a long way towards doing that. So, as you have experienced being in a minority within our profession,
Mhm.
uh, how do these differences relate to you? How is it different when you're interacting with many of your male colleagues? Are they dismissive in the same way, or are they respectful? What do you?
So it's so interesting because I had this conversation yesterday with another advisor, and I was saying how difficult it is to be a female rainmaker in this industry, because it's so much harder for a woman to be um a lead planner or a president of the firm or a founder or whatever, because this industry is so male dominated, right? And it's funny because I happen to be a strong female, and I never even realized that it was so biased until probably I had a like epiphany in my 40s, and I was at a TD Ameritrade conference or Schwab conference, and the line was out the door for the men, and I just walked in the woman's bathroom, and I like had to take a picture of it because I was like, this is a complete opposite of everywhere you go. And I was like, wow, there's like no women. And it's so funny that it dawned on me late into my career because I was so focused on my role and working with clients that I wasn't even really realizing how not balanced it is. And then when I was at United Capital, it's interesting because we had an advisory council, and I was one of the women on the council, and you were supposed to rotate off after 2 years. And I said to them, I'm not rotating off unless you replace me with somebody who's equal or stronger. And they said, we can't do that. And I said, then I'm not getting off. And I stayed on for I think 7 or 8 years. So, and it's funny because somebody said to me, like, how did that happen? I'm like, because I just opened my mouth and said that. So like, and so most of the things that I've done in my career, I've pretty much asked for them. So like in at United Capital, I wanted to start women's leadership. So I actually did a proposal based on research, a white paper, pretty much a lot of the stuff that's in my book, and gave it to Joe Duran and said, this is why I need a multi-million-dollar budget so we can change this and be ready for the clients of the future, which are women. And he actually agreed with me and we did it. And so we were really moving the needle at United Capital back in the day, pre-Goldman. And so unfortunately then you know the other side of that story.
I do. It's not a good one.
No,
But,
it is not.
So, let's let me switch to the personal for just a moment. You are always up. You are always vibrant. You are always on the move. People accuse me of having a lot of energy, but I pale in comparison to you. What gets you up in the morning? What really gets all of those juices flowing?
So I feel like my life's purpose and why I was put on this planet is to do exactly what I am doing with my life. So I am completely aligned with my life goals, which are to change the industry to make it female friendly, to reach as many women as possible, to have them grow their wealth and power, and to change the industry so that it is on equal footing with women and we don't have this lopsided 80-20 thing going on. So I am living my life's purpose, which is the most exciting thing in the world. And as my husband says before I go to bed, run around the block a couple times and still burn off some of that energy, because I do happen to have an unlimited amount. I don't know why, but it's maybe because I'm aligned with my purpose. But when I talk about in my chapter 1 in the book, when I talk about when I wasn't aligned with my purpose, those 4 years of my life when I was stuck in a contract that I couldn't get out of at Goldman Sachs, I couldn't get out of bed in the morning. I literally could not. I mean, I could barely even, I was barely surviving. So it's just so interesting because I feel like when your values and your life's purpose are aligned and you're on the right path, energy is just overflowing.
Oh, absolutely. I feel that energy and love it, by the way. So let's get really specific for a moment. You're coming to interview me about potentially hiring me, my firm, to work with you. What are the key things that women should be looking for from a financial planner that will help them decide whether that person is going to be dismissive? I mean, I've sat there and seen people, males, honey, dear, I know what's best. And I
Don't
get
worry
all
your
of
pretty little head about it.
that. I like that one too. That's a good one to add to that list. But what are the things that women ought to be asking or looking for, both in terms of very tangible, but then also those behind the curtain kind of
Right.
intangible?
So I believe that women are incredibly intuitive, like absolutely incredibly intuitive. And I always feel like that they should really listen to what their gut is telling them. And how do they feel? How do they feel? How do they feel when they get out of that interaction? Do they feel good? Do they feel empowered? Do they feel like I can do this and this is going to change my life? That's what I want them to feel. I want them to feel that part. So what that means is that's education, it's empathy, it's understanding, it's listening, it's asking questions, it's asking the right questions. It's creating an environment where they feel safe to ask anything they want, and without judgment and without feeling like, oh my God, this is a stupid question and I'm going to be, embarrassed for asking it. No, there's no stupid questions. There's only stupid answers. And there's always just, just creating the safe space for them. It's interesting because that's another thing that it's important to me in my life, that women feel safe. And so, it's pretty much the one thing in my life too, that I look back on my life and that's like a thread in my life. When I was in college, I founded a sorority in college. There was, it was, gosh, it was in the late 80s, early 90s. I know.
I can't wait that age.
But there was, campus date rape and all this other horrible stuff going on. And I was like, I need a safe space for women. So I created a national sorority at my school, and it was the largest one there. And it's still going on today, 30 something years later. And that to me was like an incredible thing that I could do and create that safety space for women. And so that's pretty much what I do now. I mean, I've been doing it my whole career, is just trying to create that safe space for women. I had a new client that I took on, I guess it was maybe a couple weeks ago, and she had never worked with a financial planner before, but she really wanted to. And she, finally got to the stage where she was ready. And, it was our first meeting. She had already hired me. And I said, okay, this whole meeting, we're just going to talk about educational stuff. And I'm going to teach you some things. And we're going to talk about, I'm going to show you Ibbutsons, and I'm going to show you Callan charts, and I'm going to show you all these different things. And you're going to ask me questions. And we did that for an hour and a half. And afterwards, she sends me an email and she said, I am so excited that I literally don't think I'm going to be able to sleep tonight, because I cannot wait for my financial future to start. And I'm so excited to be working with you. And I feel excited and empowered. And I'm like, you know what? Pat myself on the back. I did my job. That's exactly what I want women to feel.
Well, I've been very fortunate over the years, as I mentioned earlier, 23% women in the business. At one point, we were more than 50% women here at the firm. And then they started retiring on me, Cary. And, all the good advice they gave to others, they gave to themselves, thank goodness. And, they retired and went on their way. Cary, I want to go back just a little bit. When I first met you, you were married for the first time.
Mhm.
We talked about women ending up with the money either through divorce or through death. Tell us about the experience with your ex-husband, and if you were not a financial planner, when should women start to think to seek out, maybe even on their own, even if they're in a relationship, a financial planner on their own?
So I believe that before you get married, you should sit down with a financial planner as a couple, right? Because you are not only marrying that person, you're marrying their money, you're marrying their goals, debt potentially, or whatever's covered up in the closet, the skeletons in the closet. So I unfortunately married Mr. Wrong, as you know, and it cost me dearly. It took me almost a decade to get my life back from that horrible mistake. And, I had financial infidelity done to me. I had, cheating, lying, stealing, all of like the worst things that you could ever think of. But you know what? Honestly, what the best part of that is now how I can counsel my clients, because I went through it. I came out on the other side. So when I go through these divorces with my clients, I literally have been there, done that. And I counsel them that, and I get them through that. And I used to call it, when I did this with my clients, I used to call it trauma bonding. And I actually think it's technically, that's a negative word. So it's technically resilience bonding, because you go through this horrible experience with them, and then you wind up on the other side where they are strong and whole and vibrant, and they will never forget what you did for them. And they are bonded to you for life in a positive way because of what you did for them. But if I did not go through what I went through, I would not be as good of a planner than I am today.
Interesting to hear you say that. One of the women that is a CFP professional here at Provise, her story is around Katrina, and how that event totally destroyed their lives, which then led to a divorce that she was really not prepared for in any way, shape, or form. And the same kind of life lesson that you talked about, that she's able to relate to others as she talks with clients, prospective clients, et cetera. So those real life experiences that we have shared over those more years than we want to talk about, are important to share with clients. So before we wrap things up, let's get a little personal again for a moment. What does having impact in life actually mean to you? You've touched on it a little bit. You should just be a little more passionate about what you've talked about. So I'm going to give you one more chance. If you could wave a magic wand and you could have that one thing happen, what would it be?
So for me, in my lifetime, what I would like to happen is that women have parity with men in wealth management. Whatever that means we're 50% of advisors. We are controlling, we have the same amount of wealth as men, if not more, because that's what the stats say, that we're going to have more. That we are, that we don't even have to do unconscious bias training. We don't have to do, is your practice, you don't have to take my quiz, is your practice female friendly? Because you already know it is. So like, we don't have to do all of this stuff that I'm telling you to do in my book, because it's already happened, and it's already equal, and women are on the level playing field. That would be incredible in my lifetime. And also that there's no pay wage gap and there's no wealth gap. That would be fantastic too.
No love gap, did you say?
No. Pay wage gap and
Pay
no
wage.
wealth gap and wealth gap. No, not a love gap. No love gap.
Okay. So, Cary, some of the women who may be listening are saying, "Wow, Cary seems so confident, so well informed on this. Sounds like an exciting career." We know that there are not enough women in our profession. You and I are working hard through the Center of Financial Planning with the CFP board to try to break down some of the barriers, the things that you were just talking about, waving your magic wand on. So,
Right.
why don't you talk a little bit about talk to the women about why this would be a great profession for them?
So yes, so it's the greatest profession in the world, and you don't have to be the lead advisor or the rainmaker. You don't it's so interesting, because like, I think that most women don't want to go in and say, oh my gosh, I have to eat what I kill, and I don't get paid a salary or anything, and I only get paid when I get clients. Like, that is a turnoff to most women. Most women are not going to be interested in eating what they kill. They're going to want a salary. They're going to want stability. They're going to want, a level base salary, and then plus, maybe some bonuses for achieving goals or whatever. So I believe that this industry, we've got lots of different career paths. So, I mean, you could be head of financial planning. You could be, just do financial plans. You could be head of client services. You could be a servicing advisor. So it's interesting, because me and you are lead advisors and we are rainmakers, but we need corresponding advisors to do everything else for us. So I bring in the clients, and then my number two, who's also a CFP, does all the servicing of those clients. So doing the financial plan, taking the, doing the RMDs, doing whatever the client needs. You don't necessarily have to be taking all that risk to, jump off a cliff and say, I'm just going to make money if I get clients. There's hundreds of other roles. You could do fintech, you could do writing, you could do well, no, you can't really do speaking, but you know what I'm saying. There's so many different roles within a firm that just find whatever you love. Just find where your passion is and go towards that. That's what I feel like is the most exciting thing. I always say, if you're doing something that you love and you lose time, then you're doing what you're supposed to be doing.
A lot of people ask me, why don't you retire, or why haven't you retired? And I tell them, well, first of all, I love what I do. And I think I still add value to clients' lives. And if you love what you do, to your point, why wouldn't you just keep doing it? It's one of the beauties of our business.
I don't even feel like I work. I mean, people, and it's funny because I probably work 7 days a week, but it's certainly my choice because I love what I do so much that it doesn't feel like work. And I'm the same as you. I could retire. I could have retired 10 years ago. I do this because I want to do it. I do it because I love it, not because of money. I do it. I can be done. I do it because I want to do it. And it's funny because I almost gave up during my dark period at Goldman. And then I said, wait a minute, if I give up, they win. And then I'm not going to be here for the great wealth transfer, which I've been talking about for over a decade. I have to be here for the great wealth transfer. So I'm staying as long as I can possibly stay. So I'm with you.
Well, that transfer is never going to stop. So that means you're never going to stop. And that's a blessing for your clients. It's a blessing for me as your friend. And Cary, I want to really thank you a lot for being with us on Up Your Assets podcast today. Is there one last thing you got before we wrap everything up?
No, I would say that if you don't have a financial planner, you should find one, and you should be working with a CFP. So you can go to letsmakeaplan.org and find a local CFP. And also, if you'd like to read my book, in the book, there's questions to ask your financial advisor or questions for the financial advisor to ask you, but you can also flip it and then you can ask them those questions too.
And if they want to get a copy of the book, where do they go?
Oh, anywhere books are sold, Amazon, Barnes & Noble. You can go to my website, carycarbonaro.com, and then click on the links to all the booksellers.
All right. Well, that's great. And Cary, I'm waiting for the third book.
It's in the works.
That's great. Well, hopefully everyone is taking away something from today's podcast, and especially the women who've been listening, who maybe heard their own voice in Cary's advice and in her voice. So from me, look for an advisor who understands your values, appreciate and understands them, understands your contributions to your family, to your community, somebody who's transparent, somebody who's a CFP professional, and someone who's a fiduciary. Once again, Cary, thanks for being here. Now, all of you go out there and up your assets.